The wax from the tall white candle had melted into a thick, ugly puddle on the white tablecloth. I looked down at my watch. It was 11:45 p.m. The restaurant was nearly empty now, save for the tired waiters leaning against the far wall, whispering quietly. 2 plates of untouched, cold filet mignon sat between the empty chairs. "Sir?" The waiter approached softly, his voice full of pity. "Should I clear the table, or are you still expecting your guest?" "Give it another 15 minutes, I said, forcing a tight smile. "She might just be caught in traffic." "Of course, Mr. Vance," he murmured, retreating into the shadows. I stared at the empty seat across from me. It was our 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years ago today, Chloe and I stood in a small city hall, promising to love each other through everything. I had promised her that tonight would be unforgettable. I wanted to tell her the truth tonight. I wanted to tell her that I wasn't just a quiet, work-from-home corporate accountant. I wanted to tell her that I owned the very bank that held her boutique's lease. My phone buzzed on the table. My heart leaped, but it froze when I saw the text message. Something urgent came up for Julian's new tech company. I have to help him secure his seed funding tonight. Don't wait up. Julian Cross. The name tasted like poison in my mouth. He was her charismatic college ex-boyfriend who had magically reappeared 3 weeks ago, flashing expensive watches and talking about changing the world with artificial intelligence. I stood up, threw a stack of $100 bills on the table, and walked out into the cold Chicago night. It was past midnight when the front door of our townhouse clicked open. I was sitting in the dark living room, watching the headlights of a departing luxury sports car fade from the window. Chloe walked in, tossing her designer purse onto the kitchen counter. The distinct smell of expensive lounge smoke and strong cocktails followed her. "You're awake," she said, looking startled for a fraction of a second before her face hardened. "It's our anniversary, Chloe," I said quietly, remaining seated. "I waited until midnight at the restaurant." She sighed loudly, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, Ethan. Don't start with the guilt trip. I told you it was an emergency. Julian's entire launch depended on tonight's meeting." "Julian's launch?" I stood up, walking into the dim light of the kitchen. "Your anniversary happens once a year. Julian's meetings happen every single day. You just don't get it, do you?" She snapped, her voice rising in irritation. "Julian is on the verge of building a multi-million-dollar tech empire. Tonight we met with major angel investors. I'm trying to build a real network, Ethan. I'm trying to step into high society." "And what about us?" I asked, looking directly into her eyes. "What about what we built?" Chloe let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "What we built? Ethan, you work from a laptop in your pajamas all day. You look at tax spreadsheets and balance books for mid-sized companies. You have absolutely no ambition. You live in a tiny, safe little bubble. I like our life, Chloe. I thought you did too." "Well, I grew up," she said coldly, stepping closer to me. "I want more than just comfortable." Julian has true vision. He understands high-stakes business. When he talks, people listen. When you talk, it's about tax deductions. The words cut deep, but I kept my face completely expressionless. She had no idea that the modest townhouse we lived in was a choice, not a limitation. She had no idea that my quiet life was a shield to protect us from the chaos of extreme wealth. "So Julian is a man of vision," I said, my voice dropping to a calm, steady tone. "And what am I to you now, Chloe?" "Right now? You are a weight holding me back," she said bluntly, not even blinking. "You don't understand the corporate world. You don't understand how elite business works. If I had listened to you, my boutique would still be a tiny hobby shop. Julian is helping me think bigger. Julian is using you, Chloe. You can't see it because you're blinded by the flash." "Shut up, Ethan. Just shut up," she yelled, her face flushing with anger. "You're just jealous because he is everything you're not. He is successful, he is driven, and he actually moves in the circles I want to be in. I am tired of apologizing for wanting a bigger life than a simple accountant can provide." She turned around, grabbing her bag off the counter, and walked toward the stairs. "We are going to talk about this tomorrow," she called out over her shoulder. "And don't bother coming up to the bedroom tonight. I need space to think about where this marriage is even going." The sound of her bedroom door slamming shut echoed through the quiet house. I stood alone in the dark kitchen for a long time. The pain in my chest slowly transformed into something else, a cold, sharp clarity. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I hadn't called during family hours in years. It rang only once before a deep, professional voice answered. "Sir?" Marcus Sterling said, sounding awake and alert. "Is everything all right?" "Marcus," I said, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. Tomorrow morning, I want a full financial audit on a man named Julian Cross. Everything. His assets, his debts, and his shell companies. There was a brief pause on the line. Consider it done, Mr. Vance. Should I prepare the executive boardroom for you tomorrow? Yes, I replied softly. It's time I stopped playing the simple accountant. 2 weeks passed like a slow-motion car crash. Chloe completely stopped hiding her schedule from me, effectively becoming Julian's shadow. Every conversation we had was filled with his name, his ideas, and his grand vision. Ethan, can you hand me those files? Chloe asked one evening, barely looking up from her phone. Julian needs a quick summary of retail market trends for his pitch deck. I am a corporate accountant, Chloe, not his personal assistant, I replied, setting my coffee cup down. Why is he asking you to gather market data anyway? Doesn't his brilliant AI platform do that? She rolled her eyes, letting out a sharp breath. You just love being petty, don't you? He's a busy CEO, Ethan. He doesn't have time for basic administrative research. If you won't help, I'll do it myself. I just think you're spending an awful lot of time and energy on a man who isn't your husband, I said quietly. He is my business mentor, she snapped, grabbing her coat. And tonight is the annual city charity gala. Sarah invited me as her guest. Please tell me you aren't going to wear that boring gray suit if you come. I like this suit, I said. It gets the job done. Fine. Just stay in the back. I don't want you embarrassing me in front of the high society investors Julian is meeting tonight. An hour later, the glittering crystal chandeliers of the grand ballroom buzzed with Chicago's elite. I deliberately kept my distance, holding a glass of club soda by the marble pillars in the background. Across the room, Chloe stood with her best friend, Sarah Jenkins, who was dripping in diamonds and judging every person who walked past. Oh, look who decided to show up, Sarah chuckled loudly as I walked near their table to grab a napkin. She looked down at my off-the-rack jacket with pure disgust. Chloe, darling, did your husband purchase his attire from a local department store sale? It's practically screaming middle management. Sarah, please, Chloe whispered, though she didn't defend me. Instead, she looked away, her cheeks flushing with deep embarrassment. Ethan just prefers to be comfortable. Comfortable is for people who have given up on life, honey, Sarah sneered, tapping her manicured nails against her champagne flute. Look at Julian over there. Now that is a real man. He's currently pitching his revolutionary artificial intelligence logistics platform to the billionaire tech fund managers. He is a forward-thinking alpha, Chloe. You deserve someone who can actually elevate your status, not drag you down to the accounting department. Julian is very ambitious, Chloe agreed softly, her eyes tracking Julian as he laughed loudly with a group of wealthy executives across the floor. He told me his startup is going to completely rewrite global supply chain tracking. He's a visionary, Sarah declared, giving me a pointed look. Some men change the world. Other men just calculate the taxes for the people who do. I kept my mouth shut, letting a calm smile rest on my face. Enjoy the champagne, Sarah. I hear it's the only expensive thing you didn't have to finance this month. Before she could scream, I turned on my heel and walked out of the gala. It was nearly 1 a.m. when Chloe burst through the front door of our house, her high heels clicking furiously against the hardwood floor. I was waiting for her at the kitchen island, a printed bank statement sitting directly under the bright pendant lights. What was that back there? She demanded, throwing her wrap on a chair. You insulted Sarah. You embarrassed me. We have a much bigger problem than your friend's ego, Chloe, I said, my voice completely steady as I tapped the paper. Where is the $250,000? She froze for a split second, her eyes darting to the paper, before her face hardened into cold disdain. I moved it. It's my money too, Ethan. It was our entire joint savings account, I corrected her, looking up into her cold eyes. You wiped it completely clean. Where did it go? I invested it in Julian's startup, she said, squaring her shoulders proudly. I bought early founder shares. I'm not going to apologize for making a smart financial move. A smart move? You gave $250,000 to an unproven tech company run by your ex-boyfriend without even consulting your husband. My voice finally lost its softness, growing sharp. Are you insane? No, I am practical, she yelled back, her eyes flashing with anger. You lack the courage to build something grand, Ethan. You want to sit on that money forever, watching it grow by 2% a year like a coward. Julian is going to change the entire financial world. He promised me a 10 times return within 6 months. Julian is selling you a fantasy, Chloe. You are throwing our future into a black hole. Our future? She laughed, a bitter, mocking sound that filled the empty kitchen. Our future with you is a slow death in a boring suburb. I want to be part of a real legacy, Ethan. I want to be wealthy, powerful, and respected. I refuse to be tied to a mediocre, small-minded man who gets scared the moment a real opportunity presents itself. So you trust his word over my entire career of financial analysis? I asked. Yes, she shouted, stepping right up to the counter. Because he actually achieves things while you just calculate them. He has the balls to take risks. You don't. Now, if you're going to lecture me like an accountant, don't bother. The wire transfer is already finalized. She turned around and stormed upstairs, leaving the echo of her insults hanging in the air. I looked down at the empty bank statement. I didn't feel angry anymore. The last lingering shred of my affection for her had evaporated. I picked up my phone, opened my secure browser, and made a silent mental note to pull the state's official corporate registry first thing tomorrow morning. If Julian was collecting large investments, he had to file papers. And if he filed papers, my bank would find the truth. I locked the door of my modest sedan and walked into the grand marble lobby of the Apex National Bank headquarters. The security guards immediately stood at attention, straightening their jackets as I approached the private executive elevator. I scanned my biometrics and the elevator shot upward toward the penthouse suite. The doors opened directly into a massive, sunlit corner office. Marcus Sterling, the visible president and CEO of Apex, was already standing near the mahogany desk, a thick leather folder clutched tightly in his hand. He looked at my tailored navy blue three-piece suit and sighed softly. It has been almost 3 years since I saw you wear that suit, Ethan, Marcus said, extending his hand. I take it things at home didn't improve? The facade is over, Marcus, I replied, shaking his hand firmly before taking a seat in the leather armchair. Tell me you have the data on Julian Cross. I do, and it is far worse than we suspected, Marcus sighed, tossing the folder onto the desk in front of me. Open it. See for yourself what your wife's brilliant visionary is actually doing. I opened the file, my eyes scanning the financial tracking logs, bank records, and corporate registries. My jaw tightened as the reality became clear. This isn't a tech company, I muttered, looking up at Marcus. There is no artificial intelligence logistics platform. There is no software team. This is a classic Ponzi scheme. Exactly, Marcus nodded, pacing across the room. Julian is using money from new investors to pay off his massive personal debts and old creditors from his failed ventures. The entire setup is a hollow shell company. He is completely broke, Ethan. The flashy sports cars and luxury lounges are all financed by fraud. And Chloe gave him $250,000 of our savings, I said, a bitter taste filling my mouth. She actually thinks she invested in the future of technology. Ethan, that's not even the real crisis, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a very serious tone. He leaned over the desk, pointing to a document at the bottom of the stack. Look at the high-priority queue from our commercial lending department. This came in just 2 hours ago. I pulled out the document. It was a formal corporate loan application submitted to Apex National Bank. My eyes widened as I read the names. A $5 million commercial loan application. I read aloud, my heart pounding. Applicant, Chloe Vance. Business partner and guarantor, Julian Cross. Read the collateral section, Ethan, Marcus urged quietly. I flipped the page. She put up our primary residential property. And her entire boutique fashion business. Everything is listed as collateral for Julian's project. I leaned back stunned. But how? I am the co-owner of that house. The deed requires both of our signatures. She falsified the corporate registry and the property documents, Marcus explained, his face grim. She filed an emergency amendment yesterday, listing herself as the sole owner and officer of all assets. She literally lied on a federal banking application to push this funding through for him. She signed the fraud waiver. I stared at her signature on the bottom of the page. It was neat, elegant, and entirely willing. She had completely risked our entire livelihood, committing a felony in the process, just to fund her crush's imaginary empire. This is bank fraud, Ethan, Marcus said, crossing his arms. Under federal law, we have to flag this. I can call our legal team right now and reject the application immediately. We can have Julian blocked from our system before lunch, and I can handle Chloe privately so she doesn't go to jail. I stood up from the chair and walked over to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. The city of Chicago stretched out below me, a sprawling maze of concrete and glass. Down there, Chloe was probably sitting in her boutique, dreaming of high society, looking down on me as a mediocre accountant who didn't understand the real world. Ethan? Marcus called out from behind me. What do you want to do? Just give me the word and I will kill this loan application right now. A cold, heavy calmness washed over me. The pain was entirely gone, replaced by a ruthless clarity. No, I said, my voice quiet but absolutely firm. Don't reject it. Marcus gasped, taking a step toward me. What? Ethan, are you crazy? It's $5 million of our bank's capital. And it's backed by fraudulent documents. If Julian takes this money and runs, your wife lose everything. She will be completely ruined. She made her choice, Marcus, I said, turning around to look him dead in the eye. She told me I lacked the courage to take risks. She told me I am a weight holding her back from a real legacy. But the law, Ethan. The law will handle Julian Cross, I interrupted calmly. Approve the loan, Marcus. Release the $5 million to Julian's corporate account immediately. Are you absolutely certain about this? Marcus asked, his hand hovering over his desk phone. Once that money hits his account, the trap is set. There is no turning back from this. I am completely certain, I said, adjusting my cuffs. Let her see what a real high-stakes business move looks like. Let her experience the full weight of the visionary she chose over her husband. The bass from the speakers vibrated right through the soles of my shoes. Julian had rented out the most expensive rooftop lounge in downtown Chicago, decking it out in flashing neon lights and ice sculptures shaped like artificial intelligence grids. Waiters weaved through the packed crowd of investors, models, and socialites, carrying silver trays of vintage champagne. I stood in the far back corner near the secondary bar, dressed in my plain gray suit, holding a club soda. Nobody looked at me. To this elite crowd, I was just a ghost, an uninvited intruder in their high society playground. Another drink, sir? The bartender asked, barely wiping the counter. I am fine, thank you, I replied, my eyes fixed on the center stage. Chloe stood right next to Julian on the elevated platform. She looked radiant, wearing an emerald green silk designer gown that I knew cost at least $10,000, a purchase undoubtedly made using the newly released loan proceeds. She beamed as Julian wrapped his arm tightly around her waist, pulling her close to his side. Ladies and gentlemen, tech innovators and future billionaires. Julian magnified his voice into the microphone, causing the crowd to erupt into cheers. Tonight, we don't just celebrate the launch of Cross Logistics AI. Tonight, we celebrate the dawn of a multi-billion-dollar empire. The crowd roared, clinking their glasses together. And I want to take a moment, Julian continued, turning his gaze directly toward Chloe, to publicly honor my guest of honor, Chloe Vance. When the traditional, blind institutions doubted my genius, she saw the future. She is the only true visionary who believed in me from the very start, backing this dream with her own legacy. Let's raise a glass to the woman who made this empire possible. To Chloe, the crowd cheered, drinking deeply. I watched Chloe blush, leaning into Julian's shoulder as he kissed her cheek. The open disrespect to our marriage was broadcast to hundreds of people, yet I felt completely numb. The illusion was beautiful, but the foundation was already rotting away. Ethan? I turned my head as Chloe walked over toward the exit, holding a half-empty glass of champagne. Her smile vanished the moment she saw my plain attire, replaced instantly by a look of deep embarrassment and pity. What are you doing here? She whispered harshly, stepping into my personal space so nobody else could hear. I told you to stay home. You look completely out of place. I just wanted to see what a $5 million party looked like, Chloe, I said, taking a slow sip of my club soda. Julian seems very confident for someone who hasn't shipped a single line of working code yet. You just can't stand it, can you? She sneered, her eyes flashing with absolute disdain. You see his success, you see all these wealthy, influential people celebrating his mind, and you are drowning in your own jealousy. Julian just secured the capital. The empire is real, Ethan. It's happening right now. Capital from Apex National Bank, I remarked calmly. Are you sure you know what you signed to get that money? I signed for my future, she snapped, tossing her head back. I did what you never had the guts to do. I took a massive leap. And look around you. It paid off instantly. The elite investors are already begging Julian for a piece of the pie. You don't belong here among real movers and shakers, Ethan. You are a small man who thinks inside a small spreadsheet. Is that really what you think of me, Chloe? It's the truth, she said, her voice dropping into a cold, transactional tone. Seeing you stand here in that cheap suit while I'm standing on stage next to a man changing the world, it made everything very clear to me. We live in two completely different universes now. And what does that mean for us? I asked quietly. It means it's over, she said bluntly, looking me dead in the eye without a single trace of regret. I want you to pack your things and leave our house tonight. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I am officially filing for divorce on Monday morning. I refuse to let a mediocre accountant drag down my new social standing. I stared at her for a long moment, memorizing the absolute certainty on her face. The woman I loved was completely gone, swallowed alive by greed and false promises. You want me out tonight? I asked, keeping my voice perfectly level. Yes, she said, turning her back to the crowd. I don't want to see your face in my house when I get back from the after-party. Julian is moving in his elite inner circle and you are just dead weight. Go back to your little numbers, Ethan. Leave the big business to the professionals. I looked past her shoulder, seeing Julian laughing loudly with Sarah Jenkins near the VIP lounge, holding a fresh bottle of champagne. He looked like a king, completely unaware that his crown was made of borrowed sand. I looked back at Chloe, a soft, genuine smile touching my lips. All right, Chloe, I said softly, adjusting my jacket. If that's what you want, I will leave. Good, she muttered, taking a heavy gulp of her drink. Don't make a scene. Just go. I won't make a scene, I promised her, turning around toward the glass doors of the elevator. Enjoy the party while it lasts, Chloe. Truly. Enjoy every single second of it. My phone buzzed on the executive desk at exactly 8:45 a.m. I picked it up, watching the automated security logs flash bright red across my screen. The trap had snapped closed. Sir, it just happened, Marcus said, his voice crackling through the line. Julian just tried to wire $4.9 million out of the country. Destination, an unverified shell company in the Cayman Islands. Did my automated protocol hold the funds? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Instantly, Marcus confirmed. The flag for immediate corporate asset dissipation triggered. The FBI white-collar unit is already moving. Investigator Miller is entering the building now. Excellent. Let the law take its course. Less than an hour later, my personal phone rang. The screen displayed Chloe's name. I pressed answer and held the device to my ear, listening to the absolute chaos erupting on the other end. Ethan. Oh my God, Ethan, please answer me. Chloe shrieked, her voice completely broken by heavy, frantic sobbing. Shouting and heavy footsteps echoed loudly in her background. I am here, Chloe, I said, keeping my tone perfectly even. Why are you screaming? They're taking everything, she wailed, hyperventilating into the receiver. Federal agents just burst through the doors of Julian's offices. They have jackets that say FBI and IRS. They are seizing the computers box after box. They told us to step away from the desks. Why would federal agents be raiding Julian's visionary tech empire, Chloe? I asked quietly. I don't know. Julian is screaming at them and they just put him in handcuffs. She sobbed hysterically. The lead guy, an investigator, Thomas Miller, just handed me a stack of documents. Ethan, he told me that Julian's company is a total fraud. He said it's a massive Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme? The one that was supposed to rewrite global supply chains. Don't do this right now, please, she begged, her voice cracking as she wept openly. You don't understand the worst part. I just checked my phone and my personal bank accounts are completely frozen. My boutique's credit lines are totally blocked. The bank sent an emergency legal notice saying they are calling in the collateral immediately because of severe application fraud. They are taking my business, Ethan. They are taking the house. I am completely ruined. You signed the loan paperwork as the sole owner and guarantor, I reminded her coldly. You chose to risk those assets. I didn't know he was lying to me, she screamed, the pure terror evident in her breath. Sarah told me he was a sure thing. Julian promised me we would be billionaires. Ethan, please, you have to help me. You are a brilliant corporate accountant. You know how these banks operate. You know the loopholes. Please tell me there is a way to stall the foreclosure. Can you talk to the lenders? Can you audit the books and find a mistake? The bank doesn't make mistakes with $5 million loans, Chloe. Please don't abandon me, she cried out, completely desperate. I know what I said at the party. I know I told you to pack your things. I was stupid. I was blinded by the glamour. But we are still married, Ethan. You can't let them throw me out on the street. Who is the person running this bank? Who authorized this immediate seizure? I looked up at Marcus, who was standing right in front of my desk, holding the official corporate foreclosure decrees. The owner of Apex National Bank authorized it, I said smoothly into the phone. Then take me to see him, she shouted, her voice trembling violently. You work with corporate finance. You must have a contact, a manager, anyone. Please, Ethan, beg him for a meeting. Let me explain to him that I am the victim here. If I can just sit down with the person in charge of this banking system, I can plead my case. I stood up, buttoning my tailored suit jacket, looking out at the city skyline. All right, Chloe, I said, my voice dropping into a chillingly calm register. I will arrange it. The person in charge of the entire banking system is actually waiting to see you right now. Really? Oh, thank God, she gasped, letting out a massive sigh of pure relief amid her tears. Where do I go? Where is he? Come straight to the Apex National Bank headquarters downtown, I instructed her firmly. Take the private executive elevator directly to the penthouse boardroom. The chairman will be sitting at the head of the table. I'm leaving right now. I'll bring Sarah with me as a witness. Thank you, Ethan, thank you. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Don't thank me yet, I said softly. Just get here quickly. I hung up the phone and tossed it onto the polished mahogany desk. Marcus looked at me, a serious expression gripping his face. She is bringing her friend Sarah too, Marcus noted, crossing his arms. They have absolutely no idea what they are walking into. Let them come, I replied, adjusting my silk tie in the mirror. Are the federal investigators briefed on my identity? Investigator Miller already knows everything, Marcus nodded. He is processing Julian right now, but he will be upstairs in the boardroom in 20 minutes to deliver the official fraud report directly to you. Perfect, I said, walking toward the heavy double doors of the boardroom. Let's make sure the seating arrangement is exactly right for my wife's high society meeting. The heavy mahogany doors of the penthouse boardroom burst open with a loud bang. Chloe stumbled inside, her breathing ragged, her mascara smeared across her pale face. Her designer dress was wrinkled, and her hair was a chaotic mess. Flanking her was Sarah Jenkins, whose usual arrogant expression had completely vanished, replaced by sheer panic as she clutched her handbag like a shield. Please? You have to help me. Chloe cried out, ignoring the grandeur of the room as she rushed toward the long boardroom table. Marcus Sterling sat quietly at the center, watching her approach with a cold, unreadable expression. Chloe collapsed to her knees right on the polished floor, grabbing the edge of the table. Mr. Sterling, please? She begged, tears streaming down her face. I am Chloe Vance. I submitted the $5 million commercial loan. My partner Julian cross-tricked me. He lied about the AI platform. I didn't know it was a fraud scheme. You can't foreclose on my boutique in my house. I just need a loan extension. Give me 90 days to fix this. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling violently. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Chloe is the victim here. Julian seduced her into this investment. You are the CEO of Apex National Bank. Surely you can just sign a waiver and freeze the penalties. Marcus slowly raised his right hand, silencing both of them instantly with a single sharp gesture. The room became deathly quiet. Get up off the floor, Mrs. Vance, Marcus said, his voice entirely devoid of emotion. And save your breath. I do not make the rules in this institution. I cannot grant you an extension, nor can I waive a federal fraud violation. Then who can? Chloe sobbed, wiping her eyes as she stood up shakily. Please tell me who has the power to stop this. I will speak to anyone. Just give me the name of the owner. You don't need a name, Marcus said calmly, looking past her toward the back of the room. You need to speak directly to the chairman. And he is already here. Right on cue, the private inner double doors swung wide open. I stepped into the boardroom, my posture perfectly erect, clad in my bespoke dark three-piece suit. Flanking me were 2 armed federal agents, including investigator Thomas Miller, and 3 senior corporate attorneys holding thick legal briefs. The executives lining the room immediately stood up, bowing their heads slightly in deep respect as I walked past them. Good morning, gentlemen, I announced, my voice echoing through the vast space. Please take your seats. Chloe gasps loudly, a sharp, choking sound escaping her throat. Her jaw dropped completely, her eyes widening into absolute terror as she stared at me. She took 2 faltering steps backward, nearly tripping over her own high heels. Ethan, she whispered, her voice cracking into a high pitch. What are you doing here? Why are you wearing that suit? Why is everyone bowing to you? Sarah stood frozen, her face turning completely white as she looked between me and the senior executives. Chloe, why is your mediocre accountant husband standing with the federal agents? He isn't an accountant, Ms. Jenkins, Marcus Sterling interrupted loudly, standing up to pull out the large leather chair at the very head of the table for me. Meet Ethan Vance. He is the founder, majority shareholder, and supreme chairman of Vance Financial Holdings. He owns Apex National Bank. He owns this entire building. The realization hit Chloe like a physical blow. She literally staggered, clutching the back of a chair to keep from fainting. The quiet, boring man she had mocked for working in his pajamas, the husband she had dismissed as a weight holding her back from high society, was the absolute pinnacle of the elite world she had been desperately trying to climb into. No, this is a joke, Chloe stammered, shaking her head frantically as I sat down at the head of the table. Ethan, tell me this is a prank. You own the bank? The bank that gave Julian the $5 million? I own the bank, Chloe, I said, looking directly at her with complete emotional detachment. My voice was completely flat, empty of anger, empty of love. And I personally authorized the release of that $5 million. You wanted a high-stakes business move, remember? I simply allowed you to make one. You knew, she screamed, fresh tears spilling over her cheeks. You knew Julian was a fraud? You let me sign those papers. You let me risk my entire life. You chose to falsify federal documents to bypass my name on the deed, Chloe, I countered smoothly, resting my hands on the polished wood. You told me I lacked the courage to build a legacy. You told me Julian was a real alpha who understood big business. I merely stepped aside so you could follow your visionary crush. Investigator Miller stepped forward, placing a heavy file on the table. Mr. Vance, Julian Cross has officially signed a confession. The wire transfer to the Cayman Islands has been permanently seized by the federal government. Mrs. Vance's assets are now fully liquidated to cover the bank's immediate losses. Thank you, investigator, I replied. I opened my briefcase, pulling out 2 sets of documents, and slid them across the long table until they stopped right in front of Chloe. These are the finalized foreclosure notices for the boutique and the townhouse. And right beneath them are the unconditional divorce papers. Ethan, please? Chloe fell to her knees again, reaching out to touch the papers with trembling fingers. I was stupid. Sarah poisoned my mind. Julian manipulated me. I love you, Ethan. We've been married for 5 years. You can't do this to me. 5 years, Chloe, I said quietly, adjusting my cuffs. And you traded all of it for a flashy rooftop party and a liar's promises. You told me to pack my things and leave. I did. Now you must do the same. I stood up from the table, not offering her a single shred of pity as she wept hysterically on the floor. Sign the papers, Chloe, I said, walking toward the exit. Justice has run its course. My new life begins today.